I have said that one of the things we need to do is to examine the way we use language and add to that how others interpret our meaning. We should take a closer look at our language habits. Remember, not the grammar, that's separate and you have to learn that someplace else. But language habits, more specifically, our own bad language habits. Tragically enough, too many of us have confused bad language habits, I repeat, with something we call human nature. And again, I say, you have to ask yourself, what human nature, whose human nature, what is it I'm talking about, what meaning, whose meaning of human nature are we talking about or we mean? Now, where do we get habits? We learn them from somebody. We pick them up someplace along the line, especially language habits. Remember, words are the most important tools we have. Look how it gets back to it. So language habits are the words we use. Breaking any habit can be difficult. A lot of people do things, haven't any idea why they do them. They say things, they haven't any idea why they say them. What's a language habit I have? But breaking language habits is no exception, because breaking any habit is very difficult sometimes. Whether it's in food you eat, whether it's the way you eat, it's the way you drop your socks, to some men, it's the way you put your clothes on, the way you wear your clothes, etc. So first we need to recognize them as habits before the breaking or unlearning process can begin. So we can start by remembering we were not born with habits. We learned them. Who taught us the language that we speak? If we'd been born in a different country or in a different family, what language would we use? What different language habits would we have learned? What different language habits did we learn? Who taught us to chew, or to drink, or to smoke, or to crack our knuckles in public, or to eat with a knife and a fork and a spoon? If we realize that habits are learned, picked up somewhere, then we're better prepared to examine our own language habits. We're better prepared to examine what they're doing to us. And again, I repeat, it'll almost be running out of your ears, to our nervous systems. Second, we can examine how people talk, how people act, and how they react as a result of the words which are used. Ladies and gentlemen, to those of you who handle other people, who direct other people, who work with people, whether they're employees or customers, we can observe how people listen, how determine what they understand from our words, and watch how they express themselves after they listen to us. That's when "you make me sick to my stomach" becomes a very important tip-off that the way you said something or what you said made a big difference. You give me a pain in the neck. Usually it's much lower down. Not because you twisted their neck, because of the words you use and the way you use them. But we know enough about it now to be more aware of the fact that applying the knowledge we have goes a long way in helping to reduce human friction. Human friction. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't get along with an automobile if the friction that results from the overuse of oil, or not oil, no oil. You're ruined. The same thing is true in the English language. It helps to prevent unnecessary agony, actual, caused by words and misunderstood meaning. It helps to prevent maladjustment, mental torture, headaches, disturbances, fights, and even killing. So it's essential to understand that a lot of our human communication troubles are the results of bad language habits. That's why we're discussing specifically the subject of bad language habits in the next few moments. That's why it's necessary to emphasize again and again, we were not born with bad language habits. We acquired them. We picked them up from some persons or some groups or some experiences. We accepted word habits as part of our normal or natural language, using them over and over again, and then make it sound like we were born with language habits. We accepted word habits as part of our normal or natural language, using them over and over again, and sometimes without regard for the effect they had upon us and upon our system. Speaking of the system, we have some portions of it that we learned, as I've said, from the computer. First, there is verbal communication, the actual words we use. You must realize the context of language we use is important, including something else. And that something else is the nonverbal communication, the way we use those words, the way we talk. Again, verbal communication, just the words that come. Ladies and gentlemen, not one of you has not heard somebody speaking and saying, boy, I'll tell you, I wish he could speak better. I hope those of you who come to our third lecture will come to figure out and find out how it is possible to change what you say and how you say it to be the most effective way. I urge you to come and listen and hear, because I swiped it from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Not many of you are old enough to, maybe a couple of you, to remember Franklin Roosevelt when he became the greatest human lecturer ever and spoke to us from the White House and made us sound as if he were in our own living room and talking to us. Well, I spent 3 years in the Pentagon. And during that time, one of my roommates was the Air Force librarian. He was a male, by the way. Whenever I say, I better make that clear. Everybody thinks a librarian is a woman. And he got for me this information out of the archives. I studied it, I learned it, put it into book form, which you will get. Remember the expressions, again, I repeat over and over again. I don't like the way you look at me. You know what the answer is? I didn't say anything. You know what that answer is? You didn't have to. What do you mean I didn't have to? I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. I can tell by the way you look. Ladies and gentlemen, I said at the very outset, one of the great dangers in this whole subject, as it is so familiar to each. You haven't learned anything new here this morning, today. What you're doing, I hope, is understanding the importance of what you know. The importance of realizing that what you know can be put into total consideration. I don't like the way you look at me, and the response, but I didn't say anything, or there's another one. People frequently use it. And with some clarity, I think, some real meaning. Actions speak louder than words. What you do is more important sometimes than what you say. Or I can't tell what your thoughts are, or I can tell what your thoughts are by the way you're looking at me. You ever notice that? I can tell what he's thinking or she's thinking the way he or she looks at me. All of these expressions are evidence of the effect of our non-verbal communication. Not one word changes. And then there's what we call tactile communication. What's that? Shake hands. What did you say when you shook hands? Hello? Sure, you also said goodbye. You also said, I wish you luck. You also said, have a nice day. Have a nice time. Or you also said, according to some of the historic reasons for shaking hands, was to keep from fighting each other. You get to take the sword out of your hand when you shake hands so you can't kill the guy with the sword. We don't use a sword these days, but shaking hands frequently means hello and goodbye and thank you and have a good day and so on. So it's important. Tactile communication. I frequently have used tactile communication when we have time for what we call role playing. Get a guy up and I say, I'm your boss. So I say to you, John, I don't like what you did the other day. What would you do? Invariably, the guy responds by saying, what did I do? Tell me what I did. But now I decide to say the same thing, only this time, if I got anybody up here you could see, I'm going to use tactile, my hand. And so I put my finger in his nose and I say, I don't like what you did the other day. And watch it, my language is in full conformity with the way I use my, I don't like what you did the other day. Ladies and gentlemen, over a period of years, I can tell you that the guy will respond by, get your goddamn finger out of my face. That's the language. And they say it to a boss, which means they're liable to lose their job. They can't stand it. And then I tried something in a class in the police department one time. I used to push it. If you really want to hurt yourself, get yourself angry at yourself right under the shoulder here. Just keep punching away at it. And don't ever do that with anybody else. I warn you, it's going to be, get your fingers off of me, get your hand, don't you ever touch me again. Right here, I don't know why. I'm no scientist. I'm certainly no doctor. But I will tell you, one time I pushed a guy, not worse, not further than from here to there at 15 feet. A kid in the class for learning how to be a policeman. And I pushed him just that far. And before we got much further, his face got red, and he said, sir, you push me once more, I'll pop you one. He knew we were in a class. He knew it was an illustration. He knew it was just supposed to be a demonstration. He couldn't restrain himself. I tell you this so you know how hurt people can be when you use your fingers. You push somebody. Watch it on television. Watch it in your own relationship. Somebody pushes somebody, don't you dare push me again. And they forgot what happened. I frequently use a very simple example. 3 matches in a matchbox. We need the matches. One guy says, John, I think we're going to need another matchbox. John, you stupid jackass, there are matches left in the matchbox, 10 of them. Now, am I going to say, no, there are only 3? No, I'm going to say, who are you calling a stupid jackass? And the guy says, I'm calling you a stupid jackass. And I said, you're the stupid. Well, it goes on, but we forgot one thing. The real question was, how many matches are in the matchbox? And all we need to do when we do have these arguments over opinions and fact is to say, why don't we open the box of matches and count them? Then we don't have to use this language, don't have to get so deeply involved that we're not talking about the matches anymore. We're talking about the words we use, the language we use. This is very important to remember because sometimes we lose track of the entire argument, the entire basis for discussion as a result of the language we use. So bad language habits are often easy to recognize. Let's try. Bad language habit number 1. Do we have the capacity to listen when the other person talks? I mean, do we always hear when we listen? Here's an interesting passage we found someplace on the subject. The person who attends a concert with his mind on business